should we just start and say it is amazing to have Saeunn today? Can you pronounce your last name? Because honestly, I know we met like 10 years ago, but I'm not going to even try it because I know I'll get it wrong. Hit us with your last name.
So in Icelandic it's Thorsteindóttir, but I kind of anglicize it a little bit and say Thorsteindóttir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thorsteindóttir. So I'm really glad you said that because I was going to get that completely wrong and how I thought it was pronounced. And we met how many years ago? Maybe 10 years ago at the Kronberg Cello Festival. And we were doing all kinds of mad things. I think I had a lesson with Bernard Greenhouse. You did as well?
I was with Anna Bilsma, I think, that year, or maybe,
Anna Bilsma, what a legend. Like, just collection of legends, and we had many nerdy cello chats. Saeunn basically has done amazing things. I've been looking out while you've been doing like all 6 suites in one day, all in these amazing places in Iceland. You made the Bach suites recording, and just so many amazing things. And I suppose so many people looking at your music, you bringing the beauty of music to people in all kinds of areas of music, not just in the classical scene. So I think we can speak for both of us that we're absolutely delighted to have you here today. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're kidding? This is such a treat, such a pleasure and an honor to be included in this little Popper Fest.
Popper and Nerd Fest.
Yes, and I have to say, hats off for doing all 40. What a marathon. I mean, you guys are heroes.
I blame Katie because it was her enthusiasm that started this project, and she just dragged me along with her. So
there's not that many people I think who would agree to such insanity, but Ailbhe's always up for a crazy challenge. So
we're blaming you,
I keep
Katie.
saying yes. It's great. So it's just so lovely to see you again after all these years. And actually, one of my favorite things about this is that people that you kind of lose touch with a little bit, then you get to reconnect in a cello world. So I'm hoping at some stage.
Or meet for the first time.
Met
digitally, which is great.
Yeah, big time. So it's just so great, and hopefully we'll be able to do this all in person at some stage in our lives.
Wow, that would be amazing.
Wouldn't it just? Yeah. Popper Marathon, I think.
Popper Festival.
Oh my God.
Really, really.
There you go.
This one, I kind of thought, it's mostly all of like the first 4 positions. Oh, it's just cool. Semi-quavers. No, it was like, it's always those ones that look deceivingly easy that are like a total disaster.
Well, for me, it's that it hits you right at the end with those octaves.
Yeah.
It's like you're going along, I got this, and then bam! You.
I know.
It really kills me.
And you really have to concentrate just to make sure that your order is right in the first 2 pages.
Yeah.
So, like, your concentration by the end is gone. So that's what I think is just hilarious. Popper having the crack as usual.
Did you guys actually achieve doing those last 5 bars in the same tempo?
So for me, the 5th bar is the one that I kind of have to be like, give myself just like a little bit of time. But then the 4th, so the 5th bar from the end, right? Yeah. And then the actual octaves, I just kind of
they're fine.
Go for it. Yeah. But it's this one.
Yeah. Like whoever uses 2/3 for an octave.
Nobody.
It never happens. You never use it in any rep. So I was a bit kind of annoyed that I had to practice it. I was like, what is this about? Like, I'm never going to use this skill, but I'm going to make it.
You've got to write a piece now that uses that.
Yes.
There you go.
It's all going to be like this.
Popper 27 today. Woohoo!
I'm not doing product placement. I'm just drinking Diet Coke because it's the end of a very long day.
I was going to say, is this sponsored? Is this a sponsored segment?
If only.
Hashtag future goals.
Yes.
Big time. What did you think of this? Coming in as our expert for today, this is obviously one that you like because you picked it.
So, I think Katie was saying before that, it's deceivingly difficult because at first, I was going through and actually you'd already gotten through some of my favorites actually. And so I was sort of going through this and I came upon this one. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this one. Like, yeah, this one was fun. And then as I start doing it, I was like, oh, right. I remember it because I spent so much time on it.
Yeah.
But I have to say that it is getting more fun the more I do it, and except for that little punch in the gut right at the end, it is charming. It has its little charm. So
I love it. I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
It's in this. So, what are your kind of favorite things when you start practicing it, or what do you love?
Oh my god. So, what's funny is that I have all these notes here from when I learned it the first time. And so I kind of started with those actually. I thought, all right, let me see if I can reclaim some of the things that, my teacher told me to do. And
Nice.
one thing that I actually found really helpful was I have left-hand pits written in the margin here. And it really helped thinking of it not as putting my fingers down, but actually pitsing them off.
Yeah.
Like that we hear the... I think it's easy to feel the finger percussion on the, coming up. And then everybody kind of smears on the way down. Kind of... But being like super articulate on the way down too.
And that's really good for hand balance as well, because obviously sometimes people can kind of just be a little rocky when they're trying to get their chromatics in tune, particularly. And then you're really weight over the finger playing, so there's no denying it when you're practicing that way.
Yeah. And I think there's release there if you feel like you can kind of release each finger. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't kind of get that's the other thing as and I found myself doing this too. As I get faster and faster, you start to kind of muscle your way through it, kind of, like
Totally.
and so keeping it light, like the faster you go, the lighter you have to kind of play. So kind of in the left hand especially, I just felt like it just wouldn't work otherwise.
Absolutely.
This one is like, I noticed too, I wonder if you guys found this, that I had to pay special attention when the notes are accented, that I'm not giving a huge extra whammy with the left hand, because when I'm not conscious, I do that. Like when I'm not focused on it, it's so easy to put that energy into the left hand. And it's like all these things we've heard our whole life, but then, actually putting it to the test yourself and doing it really, really, I think even if you do one or two of them, it'll wear you out so much you won't get through the study, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's one of the charming things that he does put accents on, like kind of the weak beat a couple times, and anyway.
Yeah, I found that bar 16, actually the top one, you spend your whole life trying not to accent the top note, and I thought definitely the F deserved one, fair play Popper, but I was like, what were you thinking with that G? Like, I mean, I know you're trying to go, but I mean, we could have done it, it would have come out anyway, so now I think it's just unmusical, so I think he was definitely maybe, just out of bed that morning, put an extra accent in. Personally, I'm leaving it out.
I love Ailbhe's composer-minded brain of these things, because I'm always so like reverent. I'm like, I must do exactly. But I think there's a case to be made in that bar, Ailbhe, for the fact that the change of register is suddenly on an offbeat there.
Yes.
Yes, I'm with you.
So
100%.
So bringing out that difference, but probably the accent is naturally going to speak. We're going really, really nerdy now, but just because of the octave jump, it
the
probably
A string.
will speak. Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna jump out anyway. So I mean, I just wonder, did he think about how disgusting it was going to end up with an accent on top? But I mean, maybe we have to be tasteful in the way that we do it. That's probably we'll see when in our
Taste is
playthrough,
always
how
good.
tasteful. So the coordination obviously is a huge thing in this study. It reminded me of the kind of practice you would do for the Elgar second movement.
Yep.
And it's all, I mean, Katie knows every week, whenever I have time to do the practice I would like to do on these things, that I would do an awful lot of rhythmic practice. But, and then, or what's the third one? Really, and then the two rhythms as well. I think that would really just totally hone your coordination, get your bow speaking in the right string where it needs to be, everything's super clear, and apart from the very end, which is slightly different. I think for me that would have been my main practice technique, because it just speeds up the process, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's basically all I did to practice this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad one of us did.
No, but it's one of those things that also, like, as I was, getting to the point where I was sort of playing through, try to playing through it, I noticed that the coordination, as I was getting faster, wasn't quite there, and it's because one of my rhythms wasn't as clean as the others, and it was exactly the third one. And I had to go back, and I was like, okay, I got to clean that up, and then it worked, So it's really, like you said, it's about getting that really clean, and then everything else works. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think it's worth mentioning, especially for any students. I think sometimes people do funny things with their rhythms, like they go, and really that's not helpful at all, because it's not at the speed you're going to end up at. You want the rhythms to be faster than the end speed, so that you're practicing the technique that you're doing. So making sure, not clear.
Yeah.
So where is the shift that's happening? Okay, 100%. And every single one, we talk about this a lot, that some people do it on a rhythmic impulse, and I actually don't mind how long you stay.
Yeah.
You can stay there for as long as you want and make sure that you can play the next 4 notes. But really, really, like, the clarity, if it's there, then sure, I think you're away in a hack. I'm trying to think of a couple of other phrases you can say for that, but you're good as gold. Start doesn't have to work. Anyway,
back to 27.
Did you guys think about any practice of open string practice, or
Totally. That's what I was gonna say. Actually, was along with the rhythms, I think there's a few moments where the pattern changes. I don't think you necessarily. I did go through in sections the whole thing, open strings, but it's just knowing those moments where the bow rhythm on each string changes slightly. I'm trying to see.
So classic places bar 8. And then 2-2. Just at the end, so that you're ready and your bow actually doesn't arrive late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all about the elbow height, isn't it? To like prepare it, because you don't really have time with only 2 notes to really be on the G string. You gotta get down to the C string.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you guys use use fingers to bring you down? So if you're leaving your level up and you just bring the fingers down, or would you actually always use the elbow for that kind of thing?
I think so the elephant in the room for me is whether you actually play spiccato or you do sautier. For me, if I'm doing sautier, then I have to bring my elbow down, because otherwise it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing sautier, then absolutely, then I do like I don't know if you can see the little like lever, down to, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I definitely would have taught sautier for this.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard it so many different ways, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's the beauty of popper. You can practice whatever stroke you need to practice and use it to actually enhance whatever skill you're there to practice today. So,
I guess it's also a question of how fast you want to play it, isn't it?
Yeah.
What bow stroke you use.
We shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see. I thought as well, let's see, like other weird things, just places where I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. So obviously you have 2 options with your shifting, right? Now correct me if I'm being completely mental, but at the very beginning, shift, very clear hand shift like that. But there's certain areas where I actually did a little bit of a scooch shift. So like, you're adapting your hand. So rather than moving the whole hand, that I would move back and then move back. So kind of the crab-like effect.
Yes.
I'm sure there's
the creepy crawly. Yeah, I call it. Yeah, creepy crawly. Mm-hmm.
I love it. It is good. Did you guys use that anywhere, or was that just me? I'll give you an example, like bar 40.
Oh yeah.
I just thought it was interesting to approach it in the practice, knowing which one you're going to do, because if you haven't made your decision, then that's going to be entertaining at speed, at pace.
That's interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, but absolutely I do that.
Yeah.
I think I do that in some places unconsciously. Actually, I do think you're right. When you're every time doing the half-step shifts, it's easy to, I don't know, trap tension, I guess I could say, with all the shifts. Because I think even when you're trying to be really relaxed in the left hand, there's this subconscious, like, I've got it. You know, especially with the chromaticism of it, you want to be quite sure you're centered. So yeah, I think having that is probably something that naturally happens when you play faster. Actually, if you're maybe doesn't happen naturally.
It's tricky though, isn't it? Because obviously it's much easier to just move your hand in the shape that we know. So suddenly your tuning goes a bit funky. You know, how do you actually adapt back? That's something that I think we need to think about as cellists quite a lot. Because I like I got into a habit where I would just always stay in the same position because it's easy, you know, keep my hand in the same position. And I had a lesson with someone recently who just said, I mean, you know, you could actually extend or stretch that, you know, something like there were like weird things where you know, do you want to stretch, do you want to not? And I would have always had these old tradition things that I had from my own teachers. And actually you can throw them all in the bin if you don't want to, depending on what you're playing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love
Tangent
it. Throwing them in the bin.
Much.
One thing that I actually, now that you talked about the string crossings, one thing that I found really made a difference in clarity is bow angle. And I hadn't thought of that a lot until I actually started making some recordings.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh, wow. You know, especially on the G and C strings, I was really, I don't know if you guys can see this, but, you know, I was really this way. Or this way.
Yeah.
And especially on the C string, you know, because it's comfortable. But you kind of have to bring your tip like way forward on the C string in order to get that. I mean, it's so much harder to get a sautier on the C string already, and then if you're, you know, this is like, crap.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant, and actually thinking about that angle. So obviously the A string, we're so used to practicing like that. Of course, it's going to be the exact opposite on the C string. But then when you're actually traveling up, that you can't actually just leave it there. You have to actually be able to use that, you know, what do people call it? It's like the window wipers on the side, like the pizza cutter or something, people call it. You know, so like when people are doing this in the bow. You know,
Yes.
Sure.
Right.
Again, technical pizza.
Yeah. I actually also open the elbow. I do it kind of, I don't know if you can see that, but, you know, kind of do, instead of, you know, this thing, just
I love that.
the open. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, because anything that you can use, you know, in your, I suppose, arm length, because some people have different lengths.
Really makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. So whatever you can use as your kind of, you know, I've got extra arm, I'm going to use it.
Do you know, I think the other thing too is just talking about bow placement towards the bridge, right? I mean, obviously, we all, this is just always a good thing to remind people of in these videos, you know, need to move that bit closer as we go down the strings for clarity. And I think that, I don't know, because I guess it depends on what technique you're using and how you approach these off the strings kind of strokes. But for me, I always I try to go for as much resistance on the string as I can, and really going to the edge of the point of where, for maximum, you know, bouncy friction, trampoline action. And so it's hard when you already feel like you're on the edge of that, to remind yourself to even do it more when you're on the lower strings. And, you know, the extra, don't know if you have thoughts, Saeunn, on like how you deal with the extra weight of the string, getting that to speak.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of give more energy, don't you? You just have to, like, the more resistance there is, the more you have to kind of, like, I'm thinking of, like, you know, bouncing a basketball or something. Like, the heavier the ball, the more you just have to kind of give that first energy to get it to, you know, really speak. If it kind of just doesn't,
Yeah.
you know.
It's also worth kind of paying attention to how you start at the very beginning. This is always a funny thing, like once you're in it and it's fine. But I certainly wouldn't start from above. You know, I'd be starting from the string and using it, and that's starting the bounce for me. You know, so I'm really using a lot of first finger and a lot of pronation to actually start off that really, really nicely and easily, and then it's comfy. So you make a decision, whatever your start is. You know, sometimes we kind of go, but you're still coming in from an angle. So just making sure wherever you have to do it, you know, here, on the string.
Keep going.
Yeah!
So, yeah, making decisions. This is a big thing for me. And someone once gave me a tip on sautier and spiccato and that kind of thing to actually wind up your bow more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hilarious, like, because it seems like such a ridiculous thing, but actually with very little effort, suddenly you sound fabulous, and you just have to pronate your hand a little bit, and suddenly you're golden. There's no effort whatsoever, and people spend their lifetime with their bow just a little bit too singy.
Yeah.
And then, so for something like this, it's actually worth writing in turn up, twist bow to tighter, or something. Tighter bow, whatever you need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Famous last words.
You know, along the lines of starting the thing, I think it's maybe worth mentioning this, and you guys feel free to chime in, but I think the thing with spiccato and sautier is, like, so many people have, like, weird anxieties in their head about that, and whether or not they can do that stroke, and also, you know, achieving clarity in that when you have to play something that's just so ultra precise, it can sometimes feel psychologically really weird, because under your ear, the stroke is always going to sound different than how it does out in the room. And I think, you know, if I was performing this under somewhere massive pressure and it had to be really perfect, I would be trying to remember as much as possible to really, like, listen from outside of myself. I know, like, number of times I've had to play, like, the Mendelssohn Scherzo or Smetana Barter Bright or something like that, and you're so obsessed with clarity when you play that sort of stuff that if you're too much in your own head about it, I think it really suffers, because you need to, it's sort of this thing of trusting that the sound that's coming out is the sound you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely, I totally agree. I also think that it's so different. You know, people often say, oh, record yourself. This kind of stroke hardly ever sounds good under a microphone, like if you're going to play in a big hall. Like, I think for a microphone, I might play a little bit more delicately, just because there's so much that you're sort of spitting out in order for that to sound clear in a hall. So I think you kind of have to remember that like, yes, record yourself, but maybe, like, record it from far away to make sure that like what you, if you're going to play it in a big hall, that is coming out.
Yeah. And that's worth remembering, the difference between playing in a big hall and also, at the moment, we've all had to do a lot of recordings, and, you know, I think you sometimes think, okay, right, I'm going to play something like, you know, some kind of lovely little ditty type thing that's all like, you know, you're, and then suddenly you're like, oh God, it's rapping, you know, whereas I always notice in a smaller room that I have to totally remember that actually it's going and it's fine. Yeah. And I have control over everything, so therefore the difference between there's just a tiny release in pressure that actually can make everything sound joyful. And it's okay for that stroke to be lovely and joyful too.
Should we talk about the end?
The elephant in the room. Is that it?
I spent 10 times the amount of time on just this versus like the rest of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So just that fifth bar before the end, I think for me, that, like, I think Ailbhe was saying the 2-3, the 2 in the octave placement for me was the hardest. And it's not just like, oh, it's a bit bigger. It's like it's a different
scale or something.
Yeah, it's a different hand shape for me.
Definitely.
The 2 and the 3, like I actually have to change the way that my hand goes. And so I started just with like doing the 2, and then doing the rhythms with those, and then just adding the 3rd finger and obviously doing the rhythms with that. But just kind of trying to get really comfortable and making it harder for myself, right, in my practice than it's going to be in the actual thing.
Yeah, that's a great one. How about you, Katie?
I did the same sort of. I mean, I did the just the octaves first, and then added 3rd finger. And then I don't know, like this coming here. I had to practice that transition from the 2 to thumb octave, then the 3 to thumb octave, because that was like, oh, I'm not sure if I've ever done anything exactly like that. I mean, I'm sure somewhere, but just again, I think it's like one of those things is, and I'm glad you said that, Saeunn, that you spent so much time on the end here, because it's that whole thing of like, you have to practice the things that really need the practice, and not the whole study necessarily in the same manner.
Big time. When like time is short, you have to choose your time wisely. I definitely found the connections, like you said. Great, so and then being able to go. It's quite a fast changeover at a fast speed, isn't it? And so that connection, just practicing that was very important for me. All of these, obviously, grand, but again, that same thing when you get to... It's so unusual that you're actually moving the thumb after not moving it at all for the whole time. So sometimes at pace, I notice that I just have to hope that my thumb knows where it's going to go and just go for it. So I was laughing because I think the last recording we did, we spoke about doing those things.
Oh yeah.
And actually this is the same practice, even with octaves, that you would do for that kind of thing. So I tend to do. That kind of practice where you are glissing, trying to do it in a tempo, and then also doing your intervals from your like whatever.
Yes.
And stopping on those as well, just so your hand knows the pace. So even though it's in octaves, I think that's still worthy practice. The other thing I did notice was things like when you get to here.
That one.
Circle. That circle is quite a big one, isn't it?
Yes.
And you really have to know what angle you're going, and if you don't, it's too late. Clarity. And also that weird place exactly there, which I've now lost where that is. Oh yeah. So then the next bar, because suddenly you've got a 3-2-1-2 as opposed to just your 2-1-1-1.
Yeah.
It's really funny how you suddenly have to go rhythmic with the left hand in a way that you weren't doing the previous bar. It's quite unexpected. So I'll be intrigued to see how mine goes.
I don't know about you guys, but for me, doing dynamics with Sautier was a huge hurdle. And I'd love to hear what you guys found, but I found that actually I needed to use more bow if I wanted to get louder. Because if I used like more pressure, then my bow started to bounce more and it would get out of control and it would be uneven. And so I actually ended up, I mean, sometimes it sounds like I'm playing longer. So I tried to not do that, but I ended up using bow speed more than pressure. Yeah. What did you guys find?
I didn't do too many dynamics too well.
It's hard. It's hard.
I think
it's really hard.
Well, I don't know. It probably depends on what edition we have, right? Because the only like anything above mezzo forte I have. I mean, I have the swells, which I
Yeah.
think definitely with the swells I would increase the horizontal motion of the bow just slightly, but
Yeah.
almost at the end, I know he says to have the same stroke throughout, but I kind of let the like off the string stuff out the window once I hit, you know, the last 6 bars, I guess.
Do you have the Baronreiter edition doesn't have any staccatos on the last 6 bars?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And
So
you know, I have the old international edition, and it doesn't either, actually.
Oh right.
So
okay.
I think maybe we're okay with that. I'm happy. Well done, Popper. At least he was thinking by the time he got to the end of the study, right?
That's so funny. I've been killing myself trying to bounce my bow there.
Yeah. I mean, I just took it as a, you know, let's use this
Free
as
for
an
all.
opportunity.
Free pass. Yeah.
Yes.
Gosh.
I love it. Totally rocking. I love it. Oh my god. It's awesome. I love
It
it.
sounded
It sounded
so
perfect.
badass.
Yeah,
I was like,
seriously.
it's one of those moments where you're like, the cello can sound like that? What?
It's cool. That was so rocking, like, and you were giving it loads as well. Ah, tell you what.
Yeah, so
Back
much
to
like
Kronberg,
nice
straight back.
phrasing.
Yeah, love it. Love it.
Ah,
Oh my gosh, Saeunn, just such a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, such a pleasure to be a part of this whole project and just to see you guys, and I just love it. Yeah. Might have to find another one to do. I don't know.
Yes, you definitely do.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks so much. Great to see you.
Oh,
Great to meet
yay.
you.
Great to see you too. Yeah, great to meet you.
Yeah.
See you. Bye bye.